Hey, Chito.
So this is Elegy for a Dead World. I recently played some of it. You played some as well.
Yeah, we dabbled a
Mhm.
little bit.
It's not so much of a video game. This one's a little unconventional in that it is kind of a simulator of an environment with tools to help you write, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So you can. It includes three different worlds for you to choose from which you can choose a selection of prompts, and then those prompts form a kind of like landscape. Well, the landscape stays the same, but a sort of a series of little clues, little hints at what you could do, which you can like use or not. You can kind of erase the prompts a little bit.
They're like half-done sentences throughout.
Mm-hmm.
So like you pick a prompt, like see here we're looking at letter to a loved one, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you could pick that prompt. You would go in and you'd see this alien type environment, right? And within that environment, there's separate little mini prompts which give you like a portion of a sentence that you then fill in yourself.
Right. So here I am going through kind of the selection here for this world. There's one about there's a letter to a loved one. There's this thing about an emperor. They kind of hint maybe at the history of this world you're going into, and a lot of it is going to be, at least as far as you found, because I only really tried one level and I kind of fell off of it. But it seems like you're kind of exploring the history of this world rather than interacting with it, right?
Yeah, I get it's funny because it's sort of like it's like taking a creative writing class
Mm-hmm.
and sort of throwing pictures at it and just condensing it into a little program, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this one is a lot more forceful than I think a creative writing class would be, because a creative writing class, they give you the prompts, but it's fairly open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
This one gives you the prompts, and the prompts seem to clearly be guiding you towards a certain direction, especially because of the environments.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, to be specific, like a lot of the environments, and this is, obviously inferred from the title, but the title of the game is Elegy for a Dead World, and all three of the environments that you can visit appear to be former civilizations that are now gone.
Right.
And you're a little space man, little astronaut man with your little jetpack, and you just get to fly around and explore these environments.
Yeah.
And so as
And
you
by,
can
by explore, I mean you pretty much scroll right to left. It's not really an exploration game, but yeah, it's linear, not just in the sense of your side scrolling to the right, but they really try to lead you into having certain thoughts and putting those on paper.
Mm-hmm. So okay, what do you think? How do you think it works? Do you think it works well in terms of inspiring you as a writer to actually come up with stories, or does it feel useful?
Well, it is very leading because, like, look at this first sentence, right? Like, you'd like it here, and then it asks you for a name, basically.
Yeah.
And so, right off the bat, like, I don't have a character yet, but I have to come up with a name. So I already felt like sort of pressured into coming up with a character that I already knew.
Mm-hmm.
So I put in Samus.
Which then pressures you in another direction, because now you're stuck in this like Metroid-y game world that you're inhabiting.
Yeah,
right
now I
now.
assume that there are Metroid elements in all this, and it's like, yeah, it's very leading, and I guess that's helpful. I don't know, maybe there's an aspect of it that could be helpful for certain, I guess, blooming writers, like more novice writers, to have a lot of direction.
I think it's a great. What I do like about it, I don't like it 100%, but what I do like about it is, as far as getting over writer's block, or rather being forced to go in a direction you wouldn't otherwise go, I actually think it's kind of compelling in that way. When I did it, I did a different prompt. I think the prompt that I picked was describe the former civilization of this world, or something, like the downfall of this world. And each of the little prompts was in first person, and you're just sort of writing about what happened. And I ended up writing from the perspective of a psychopath who killed the entire planet because they believed in a bunch of gods. And I would never write anything like that. I'm not typically a sci-fi type person, but I ended up getting really into it for the short time that I was writing with the game. And that was kind of fun for a little while. But then that also leads into the problem that I have with the game, which is it was fun for a little while. However, I very quickly started to feel like, okay, I'm only really going to be inspired to write these types of stories.
Yeah.
These very dramatic science fiction types of stories.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a little unfortunate, especially because of the limits in the amount of environments that you get.
Yeah.
Right? You get so many prompts. You get like 10 prompts for each one, right? Each environment. But the prompts take you, each environment set of prompts take you to the same place.
Mm-hmm.
And you're looking at the same background. So I can imagine that, like, I can imagine this game getting pretty useless very quickly.
Yeah. It's kind of unhelpful. Ignore that. Don't worry about what I'm writing. This is stream of consciousness, you know.
Yeah.
You can't.
We're not expecting you to win a Pulitzer for what you're.
I'm putting my soul out there for you guys, just so you can know what the process is in this game. It's it seems to have a very consistent mood. You're kind of alone, and it just it's interesting because it seems like the point is to, like, I don't know who your character is. Your character is you. Your character is the writer.
Yeah.
You know? You're going through and you're writing, and it's kind of limited because I think they could have really gone out there with the environments a little better.
I think it would have been so cool because I like these sci-fi. First off, I mean, the art is commendable. I think the art is really nice to look at, and I like that the colors and just the slight bit of animation that's there. I would have really liked some more, like, even some simpler environment, like maybe some small ones, like imagine one where they just had a little alleyway with like a little cat moving around and it's raining or something. Like just little tiny pockets of environments. I feel like those are good inspiration too. And like what they did instead is they just picked 3 large environments that you're walking through, although each of those large environments is kind of the same variation of the same thing within each one. So there's not a lot of variety actually. I wish they had gone for the more variety and maybe less large, because then they could have done the same amount of art and just had more types of inspiration that you can pull from, and maybe some real world inspiration, so it's not just science fiction.
Yeah, it's just weird that there's such a there's so little content. It's the whole draw of this thing is to look at an environment and be inspired by it, and yet there's so little inspiration. You know?
And we could just Google images,
right? And
there's 1,001 like prompts online, everywhere you look. So it is a short experience. That's unfortunate. I'm sure they're going to release sequels to it. Maybe some different types of things, but for the price you pay, I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're giving you a lot.
Yeah, they could have even made it randomized. Like that would have been helpful, right? They could have had like maybe a few levels, but sort of with random elements like shuffling together in different ways.
Yeah, that actually probably. It's funny how even just doing something as simple as randomizing it would have added so much to the experience. Because you're right, you do end up, every time you go to the environment and every time you pick a prompt for that environment, you go through the same walk, through that same like organization of environment. And if it was randomized, that might have actually pushed you in a different direction. And that's a very simple change that they could have done.
Yeah, and like memory is jogged by visuals so strongly that like I imagine playing any of these levels more than once would just like funnel you deeper and deeper down the same mental hole.
Yeah, it's so unfortunate because I really like the idea of these things. I really wanted it to be something that I can go back to a lot to get, over whatever blocks I have with anything that I want to write. Like it would have been such a cool little thing if like each morning I could just go into the game and just do a quick little prompt and had some kind of really interesting inspiration to kind of push me forward just to start off my day. Like that would have been a cool game for that. But the content is so limited, I don't think that it could be useful in that regard, at least not for very long.
Yeah, it was kind of a trifle. It didn't turn out to be much of a tool.
Yeah. And it is really just a tool. It's not a game. We keep calling it a game. it's definitely a tool. It's definitely something you're supposed to use. So we're judging it as a tool, and I think as a tool, its utility is fairly meager.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, again, I mean, I like the work that they put into the visuals.
Mm-hmm.
I think they exercised a lot of creativity
Yeah.
in the creating these things, but it doesn't garner creativity so much.
And they did separate each environment by author, which I thought was going to be more interesting than it ended up being.
What do you mean?
So they have the Lord Byron environment, they have a Mary Shelley environment, and they have a Keats environment, right? And that's what the writing prompts, as far as I could tell, were like themed around whatever author the environment was named after. So the Keats one, like it has like like a love poem type vibe, or it's like just poetry influence. So a lot of the prompts look like poetry type prompts. The Lord Byron one is much more grand. The Mary Shelley one is sort of gothic prompts. But it doesn't actually follow that theme that strictly, so it's totally understandable not to even notice. And unfortunately, the environments themselves don't actually reflect the authors very much. Like this is the Keats environment, I think, and it doesn't share that much with Keats' poetry. Keats, used to just look at nature and talk about birds and urns and all sorts of beautiful little things like that. And this is very science fiction. And not like that at all.
Right, yeah, I don't really see a lot of nature here. There's definitely a lot of structures.
Yeah, and the Shelley one, I mean, that would have been a gothic, like, Frankenstein-esque type environment, but you also get another science fiction thing. So it's kind of funny that they theme it by the author, but they don't actually follow through.
Yeah.
And I was actually looking forward to it, because when I saw the Keats one, I was like, oh, cool. Like, if I need to write, like, a love poem or something, I'll go to the Keats environment, and I'll get, like, all this great imagery for love poetry or something. But I went in and I was like, oh, it's the same. It's the same as the Byron, same as the Shelley. I don't know what I get out of this. It's too bad, I think. What did you end up writing about?
Well, the thing is, I couldn't really take it seriously right off the bat because it's science fiction, and I'm not like a huge science fiction writer.
Yeah.
So my only tie to science fiction, I'm not a huge science fiction reader, I would say. And my only tie to that is like video games. So I immediately made a lot of video game references. And then my only tie to the idea of writing about video games is writing fan fiction. And then yet another tie with fan fiction is the fact that so much fan fiction on the internet is erotic fan fiction.
Yeah.
So I kind of took an
so
erotic
you just committed. You didn't even.
It's like, better to be honest, I guess. So it's just, I don't know. Yeah, I couldn't take the game very seriously because I thought it was going to be something else. I thought it was going to be a little more varied.
Well, we can agree at least that it's at least a good idea.
Yeah.
Right? I think it's a great idea. I would have loved to have a game. I mean, well, okay. Here's why I think it is a great idea. I think it's really cool that it's a game, right? Quote unquote, a game, in that you're controlling this little spaceman. You get to move through the environments. I think that's really cool for looking for inspiration because it feels like you're in control of the prompt. Even though they're giving you writing prompts, it feels like you can kind of make of it what you will, and you can pick out the parts that you like. I think that's a lot better than doing Google image searches or looking online for word prompts. It's just they didn't put the right amount of content in. But I think that idea is really cool. So I'm sure if they just maybe do it again and just do more, have more variety, maybe.
Yeah, I do want to see more games like this. I want to see people be more ambitious with it. Because this could be really useful if you're experiencing writer's block. Like this kind of idea is pretty fleshed out. Just the content isn't there. What did you end up writing about? You wrote, how many times did you write?
I kept going back to that same one. I tried two different things. I went to two different environments. I went to the Lord Byron, I went to the Keats. The Lord Byron one is the one where I ended up writing about destroying the world and being psychotic, and because they worshipped all these gods and stuff. And that one I actually wrote a lot for, like way more than I had to. And then the Keats one, I started writing, but then, like I said, I was disappointed because I thought the environment was going to be different. But it seems so similar to the Lord Byron one. I mean, obviously it was different because it was different art and it was different colors, but thematically it was the same. So it sort of felt like I was doing the same thing, and I didn't write very much for that. I probably spent about 2.5 hours writing this game, which may sound like enough. I mean, if you think that you just want 2.5 hours worth of writing prompts, like influence, then cool. But to me, I feel like I was pushing to reach 2.5 hours. Like I probably, if I wasn't trying to get prepared to do a video like this, I probably would have stopped playing a lot sooner.
Right.
I think it's much easier to write just on my own than to use these types of environment to get inspiration.
Yeah, there's not much else to say about it. It's a bit of a disappointment. I don't know that I would recommend buying it, but I would recommend looking out for this kind of stuff in the future because it's a good idea, and I think if they haven't inspired me as a writer, they've inspired dreams of more games like this.
Yeah, I hope artists latch on to this idea in the same way that. You know how the coloring book craze has been reignited? Have you noticed that?
I have not noticed that.
Okay, like last Christmas when I was going to buy presents for people, there's a ton of adult coloring books where it's like this meditative practice where people are just doing coloring books. So a lot of artists are releasing these black and white adult coloring books. It would be really cool if a whole bunch of artists took this idea and was like, we're going to do our own inspiration type games. Right, for lack of a better word, and just releasing that, and we got a whole influence of that kind of content because I actually think that would be super cool and like super fun to use. So I mean, this is potentially a great catalyst for that. But that's all it feels like to me.
Yeah, it's a good way to utilize artistic talent. Just put some still images out there that don't have to mean anything in particular.
Have them be abstract enough that you can interpret them however you want.
Yeah. That'd be really great.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
And that's it. No Scope review for Elegy for a Dead World. Thanks for watching.